Hello, 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 you guys. Welcome to Life Discussions with Dr. Jefferson. I am your humble host, Doc, Dr. Jefferson Brown for some of you guys. And I have some interesting thoughts that I'd like to discuss on today's show. For those of you who are brand new, who are joining us for the first time here on this platform, Life Discussions with Dr. Jefferson it is a platform where essentially we have difficult discussions about topics that happen to have some level of impact on the Black, brown, or should I just say melanated community in America and abroad. Now, the reason I think it's really important for me to state that, couple of reasons actually. The first reason is because this particular show will encompass a pretty thorough discussion, and I'm going to try to keep it under an hour and a half, but a pretty thorough discussion around events that have stemmed from what I consider personally, um, and as a scholar, injustices in our legal system that are tailored to have a negative impact on the Black, brown, or melanated community in America. There, there have been several discussions that we've engaged in on this channel, and this one is no different. It's definitely going to be difficult. I have accountability conversations about the difficult things, the elephants in the room, if you will. And when you talk about accountability, oftentimes people are very emotional. We lead with emotion. We don't lead with logic. Oftentimes, we don't even give logic a second thought. But I think it's important that we do just that in the discussion tonight. A man has been executed, and he is but a man. And I think, for all intents and purposes, considering the fact that he had a family, considering the fact that he had a life before whatever things led to him going down a road that would eventually land him right where it landed him. I want to have a full on discussion around what has been discovered during the pursuit of prosecution of this young man, but also in comparison with another person who is considered to be a celebrity of sorts and was prosecuted for similar crime, who is but a man, but happens to be of a different skin tone. But so before we jump into all of that and we talk about the accountability conversations, and I bring up and I read to you guys many of these things that I pulled up to reference, and we talk about Americans, crime statistics, and the age of influence, which this is what I've coined this age. We have the age of enlightenment. You guys remember that? The Renaissance period, all of these different periods, right? This is the influence period, the age of influence. But we'll talk more about that once I play the pre-show and give you guys an idea of some of the talking points for tonight's discussion. For those of you who are returning, you guys know what it is. We jump into these conversations, and I like to record live. And if we have somebody on at the time of the recording, fine. If not, fine. But I like to see you guys in the comment, and I like to exchange a dialogue with you guys, whether you catch me on YouTube, on Facebook, in my DMs on Instagram, or wherever it is that you catch me and you review this content. Do not hesitate to reach out and just kind of share your insights on where you are with your mindset around the discussions, because every once in a while we have some discussions that move people in a certain way, and they're like, she's this or she's that. I'm okay with whatever you got to say about me. I can take the smoke. um However, I always say please be respectful and considerate in the comments, but be authentically you. Give us 100% you. And that's what I'm here for, to give you guys 100% me. I would now like to jump on over here and do this pre-show and play some of these, or roll down some of the talking points, and of course jump right on in. So yeah, see you guys back in what, roughly a minute or so, right? Okay. Hi. So hello, you guys. Welcome back. Welcome to Life Discussions with Dr. Jefferson. And again, if you guys are new here, welcome to the show. If you guys are catching me on social media platforms anywhere other than YouTube, I want to encourage you guys to take the time and go on over to YouTube and subscribe to the channel if you've not already done so already. If you guys are checking me out on another social media platform and you've not already hit the subscribe button, go ahead and do that. And I've already played the pre-show criteria, some of the talking points that we'll be talking about today. And I'd like to get some feedback from you guys. But prior to us really getting a start, I would like to take just a moment of reflection for this young man and his family. I would like for us to remember Marcellus Williams and remember the impact that this man and his story has left on our community. I would like for us to take a moment of silence and reflection to show some respect to his loved ones, to his family, who now have to grieve him in a different way. And we'll get to the different types of grief over the course of this discussion. But just a second for that moment of reflection, you guys. This is heavy. It's heavy for a couple of reasons. As a woman, right, who comes from such a rich culture, when we think about the melanated community, the Black community, right, when we think about who we are and some of the very powerful sentiments that literally are laid before us, and suggestions and traditions and customs and thought processes, and just some of the cultural conditioning, right, that has been given to us as a people, some of the high hopes and expectations that our ancestors left and led with for us. in our existence. When we think about the impact of what our existence currently is on this world, right? And we think about some of these young men that we are losing day by day, by day by day, by day by day, either by the hands of others or by suicide or by violent crimes in our community and so on and so forth. This young man is a unique case to me. When we think about what justice and law and the ethics of law is essentially supposed to be, right? Like, I like to lead with the idea that in America, this is a country where people are presumed innocent until proven guilty. And one of the things that I found to be very interesting while sitting in several different courtrooms is that you will hear that the burden of proof lies with the prosecution, right? You will hear that, and for whatever reason, none of the facts, right, of these cases that are presented give us any actual proof, ironclad proof that these people are guilty. The only thing they're typically guilty of is being black, right? And I think that there is a stigma that comes along with that. And I'm not going to say that that's one of the things that is unwarranted, right? Because we know that if you are from the black community, you don't even have to be a brown skinned person or a melanated person, okay? You know that there are certain circumstances in which you may not even believe your own mother, children, dad, brother, cousin, friend, whatever. And it's justified, right? Not everybody can be trusted. You understand? That's one of the things that you learn coming from this cultural background. And oftentimes I think that that is overshadowed by this introduction that we give of ourselves into the public when we claim justice for or free such and such, or we claim that our person was executed by the police unlawfully and unjustly and all of these things. And I think that we get a bad rap for that because people are like, well, if you really cared about your lives, if black lives really matter, then you'd be out in the street when your black brethren are taking the lives of others that are black brethren. Now, and to a certain extent, I do agree with that. But the reality is, we do. These are not things that are publicized, but we definitely want to go to bat and we definitely fight when it comes to the lives of our young people being taken unjustifiably, senselessly. And the crime rates have gone up tremendously. Okay. And what I consider to be the age of influence. Sometimes I think the music these young people listen to, the people that they are exposed to in their environment when they go out to schools, when they go to these parties, when they go to all of these different things, when they're on social media in general, when they're following people. TikTok's got a ton of challenges and things like that that young people are constantly finding themselves entertained with and participating in. Um, so I think there are a lot of things that drive our young people to find themselves on these paths where they may be led to commit a crime of some magnitude, even if it's a minor crime, right? Or they may be amidst people who are committing crimes. And sometimes those are minor crimes, sometimes those are major crimes. But I think that when it comes to the particulars around Marcellus's conviction, there are just so many questions. There are so many I have so many more questions than I do answers. And I cannot see how an unbiased, unprejudiced jury could have found this young man guilty when there is clearly a murder weapon that was recovered and footprints. There are just so many different details, okay? So I'm going to read to you guys. This is an excerpt from CNN, okay? So it says, Marcellus Williams, whose murder conviction was questioned by a prosecutor, died by lethal injection Tuesday evening in Missouri after the U.S. Supreme Court denied a stay. The 55-year-old was put to death around 6 p.m. Central Time at the state prison of Bone Terry, I'm guessing. Bonatary, I don't know. Williams's attorneys had filed a flurry of appeal efforts based on what they described as new evidence, including alleged bias in a jury selection and contamination of the murder weapon prior to trial. The victim's family had asked the inmate be spared death. So, a couple of things, okay? And I'm going to read this, and then I'm going to take breaks in, and we're going to talk, okay? A couple of things that I found to be really disgusting with this particular case. It's the fact that you have a crime that has been committed, okay? And I haven't gotten to what the crime is. The crime was murder, okay? A young woman who was a previous social worker. She was working as a news reporter, journalist or something like that. The details are in there, and we're going to get to those. She was murdered after being stabbed over 40 times, if I remember correctly. Now, couple of issues, right? There are a couple of issues that I have with this, right? We know that in these particular situations where you have a woman that's stabbed multiple times, for one, to stab a person and murder them, it takes force. And at some point, you're going to be transferring that many times, you're going to be transferring DNA material, okay? So if this person did it, you're looking for DNA. And in the absence of DNA, right, even if you're trying them for murder, when it's time to sentence a person, why sentence a person to death and then continuously after this case, after you see, because that's what I'm seeing, like so many stages where the ball was dropped. And I'm wondering if the ball was dropped because this is a young Black man on trial here, right? But let me just let me get to this, okay? Let me get to it. So, the U.S. Supreme Court's action came a day after Missouri's Supreme Court and governor refused to grant a stay of execution. The High Court offered no explanation for its decision, which is common for cases on its emergency docket. There were no noted dissents in two of Williams's appeals. In a third, Justices Sonia Sotomayor, Elena Kagan, and Ketanji Brown Jackson said they would have granted the request to pause the execution. Williams was convicted in 2001 of killing Felicia Gale, a former newspaper reporter found stabbed to death in her home in 1998. So, in some way, the governor has found it within himself to say that He's hoping this gives finality to a case that has languished for decades and re-victimized the family of the young woman who was murdered. There is nothing like the victimization that takes place when I know, after sitting with everything that you guys have used to convict this young man of murdering my family member, there is nothing like the amount of victimization that sits within, resonates within, resides within a person after they are sitting and watching you prosecute, then convict someone that you have no ironclad evidence, especially when there is actual DNA material found on these murder weapons. And yes, there are a ton of issues with this case. There are a ton of issues with this case. You got the prosecutor and one of the detectives, I believe, that was handling the weapon, not using gloves to handle a murder weapon. Are you In a statement after the execution, one of Williams' attorney, Larry Comp, said his client maintained his innocence to the end. While he would readily admit to the wrongs that he had done throughout his life, he never wavered in asserting his innocence of the crime of which he was put to death tonight, Comp said. Although we are devastated and in disbelief over what the state has done to an innocent man, we are confident that he left this world in peace. Moments after the high court decision was made, another Williams attorney, Tricia Rojo Bushnell, told CNN Jake Tapper the state was prepared to kill an innocent man. And that was just, I'm baffled. She said they will do it even though the prosecutor doesn't want him to be executed. The jurors who sentenced him to death don't want him executed, and the victims themselves don't want him to be executed. We have a system that values finality over fairness, and this is the result that we will get from it. Like, the reality is, who are we? Who are we? And I oftentimes wonder how it is that we're a country that is united. Under the law and order and direction of God, how can we be a country of sorts and we are so quick to pass judgment and then stick to it in the absence of ironclad proof that this person actually did this thing? You know, I can understand. So reasonable doubt is a thing, right? So if you have reason to doubt the realities that are being presented to you as realities or facts, then you cannot find this guy as guilty. If there is no DNA, if we all know, right? Even a person who is not educated, as ignorant as under the sun, can't even read, they would know and understand that it takes force and passion to kill a person with a knife. And to stab somebody over 40 times, that had to be something personal. And outside of it being personal, right, it would have to be something that would leave behind some level of evidence to say that you've been there. And when you're talking about sentencing someone to death, I can get that you're like, oh, well, I don't know if I can believe this person because they've got a history of crime and they've been doing this or that, or they got a history of just living lawlessly, right? Let's say you ain't believing, okay? And you convicted him of this murder for whatever reason. To sentence the man to die without ironclad proof being presented that he is the one that actually committed this murder is absolutely insane to me. It is insane to me. And if the jury is not tainted, I don't know what is. I don't know what is. I don't know what is. I'm not understanding for so many reasons. If the burden of proof is on the prosecutor, I would expect some outstanding, overwhelming evidence that points to the assertion that this is what this guy did. And this is how he did it, considering just the magnitude of this crime. Like, I would need that. I would need that. And at the point where now let's just say that we recognize that people are flawed, right? The jury found him guilty and they're flawed people. They've decided to put him to death. You've got a governor. You've got Supreme Court justices that have taken a look at this case that has said very clearly that they were willing to overturn this particular conviction. At least the sentencing part, right? Where you have the family on board with overturning a case, that should be, it should create an exception. It should create an exception immediately. Immediately, if nothing else qualifies for a stay. If nothing else qualifies for a stay, the family that I have victimized, if I'm the person that actually did this crime, right? The family that has been impacted by this crime, once they're on board and they no longer feel like I have done it, they no longer feel in their heart that justice would be served by my life being taken, a stay should then be granted at least until a new trial has been delivered. If they're saying that jury tampering was a thing in the trial, they're saying that, the evidence was tampered with, which it was. That was clear. These are things that are clear facts. These are not assumptions. So in this particular case, I'm really not understanding what the difference is. Because when I'm going to reference a case, and it pains me. It does. It pains me to sit with the reality of the comparison, because we're going to get to all of these side-by-side comparisons today. And I just, in the interest of accountability, I like to say that we're not people that always are easily trusted, because our community is filled with scammers. That's a fact. Our community is filled with people that simply do not want to follow the law and do right. And I'm okay with saying that, because the reality is that's a fact. However, nobody deserves for their life to be taken by legal injection. Nobody, when there is reason to doubt whether or not they have actually committed the act that we're taking their life for. Like, when all of this is there, it's just, to me, to just go on about your daily life, to leave the office and deny this person a stay of execution, knowing that they will be executed for something that there is reasonable doubt around, plausible deniability around, it's beyond me. It's beyond me. And it makes me wonder what level of influence we really understand ourselves to have in this age of influence. Because the reality is, why are we influencing ourselves and our brethren to vote differently? Vote for different types of people to be sitting in the offices of the courts, to be sitting in the office of the governor, to be sitting in the office of the president, to be sitting in the office of the Senate, to be sitting in the offices of the House of Representatives, where they're legislating and creating laws that apply to the way that we move. Like, I just do not understand. I do not understand. Our president has the power to overturn and grant, a pardon to anybody who has been accused and convicted of a crime. Where was our president? This story made national news. It's not just him. It's not just him. There are several others. And to me, I just do not understand where you see you have a flawed Supreme Court that refuses to do what you put them in place for. And that's fine. When it comes to politics, when it comes to you guys want to run and jump and collude around why we need to vote Kamala over Donald Trump, everybody's on the bandwagon. Who and why would you drop the ball on this man's life that never got a chance to really even be lived? Because he clearly was convicted of something that he did not do, or you didn't have enough proof to show that he did beyond a shadow of doubt. So Wild Wild West says nobody has said He didn't commit the crime, but him. They literally found the woman's belongings in his trunk. Yes. Yes, I saw that. I saw that. But we don't have any evidence of them finding her belongings in his truck. We have an allegation that they found her belongings in his truck. They have no DNA evidence tying him to the actual crime in this woman's home. There is no DNA tying him to her. His DNA is not on her things. So for me, we all know there are several ways, given the fact that it's just too many. There are too many different components of this. Okay. Too many components of this that shows that there was tampering with evidence and things were moved here, moved there. Other people that should not have been touching this did touch this with their plain hands and without evidence gloves on. I don't understand where they do that at. Like, there are too many questions being raised. Okay, so this one, in a statement posted on X, the NAACP said Missouri lynched another innocent Black man. Governor Parson had the responsibility to save this innocent life, and he did not. We will hold Governor Parson accountable. How do you do that? When DNA evidence proves innocence, capital punishment is not justice, it is murder. And I agree with that statement. However, I would want to know how it is that you would hold Governor Parson accountable. Because the reality is, Marcellus Williams and his name will die with him dying today. Like, it will die. You know why? Because we're not people that will remember when it's time to go to the polls, when it's time to vote these people out. We're not people that will remember him. It will be his family. Perhaps it'll be his direct community that was impacted by his absence, who are then directly impacted by his death. But those same people that are out there saying they will hold the governor accountable, that are standing behind and representing the NAACP, they will not. They will not. They will get behind the person who has the right type of party behind them, that has the right amount of dollars to support them in their next agenda. That's the reality of this. And it's disheartening. It really is. It's disheartening because those are the realities that we live in. And then we act as if it's okay. We will talk about everything else. People will jump on social media. There's a social media trend for this, and there's a social media trend for that. There's a social media dance for this, and there's a TikTok dance for that. There are so many trends that we will jump on, but we will not jump on intelligence, education, insight, growth, the things that we need to understand and arm ourselves with in order for us to not only support, but also defend the people that are a part of our community. That is beyond me. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. When are we going to be people that hold the people accountable, that are in the position to do the things that we need to get done once we have been the people that put them there? We put Joe Biden there. The Black community did that because the Black community said they didn't want to see Donald Trump anymore, right? So my question then is, my Black community, where is our president in moments like this, where he could have done something when he saw that the ball was dropped several times, not just today, several times before today, where he could have intervened? Let's see what happens with his son. Let's see what happens and what he's willing to do for his family, for his own. And I wonder if that will be enough to wake us up. Because I don't know what will. At this point, I do not understand people that look like me. This is just, it's beyond me. It's beyond me. So let's continue to read, okay? Williams' last statement witnessed on September 21st was all praise be to Allah in every situation. Williams was a devout Muslim, an imam for prisoners, and a poet, according to his legal team. His last meal included chicken wings and tater tot. I find that to be interesting. We choose to leave here consuming the things that we craved on the outside world after being caged like an animal. If a person is convicted of a murder by way of association, let's just say because they knew the person that did it. Let's just say because they were covering up for another person. Or let's just say they wanted to draw some level of confusion. And as a result of them not, not snitching or informing on the person that is the target of an investigation, they become the default person and is then prosecuted. Why can't we be people who fairly judge what we see in front of us? I don't understand. Attorneys received a report indicating the DNA on the murder weapon belonging to an assistant prosecuting attorney and an investigator who handled the murder weapon without gloves prior to the trial. That was said by the state's judicial branch. And the Attorney General's office said that those new DNA findings did not exonerate him last month. Now, despite the fact that you don't see his DNA there, so if this particular murder weapon had been handled by everybody else and you're finding everybody's DNA on it, but the person that you're prosecuting and sentencing to death, don't you think that that in and of itself deserves a stay? If according to you, this person was so crazy that the victim's personal items and everything were found in their car. So the thing is, so if he was crazy enough to carry around her things in his car and to end up being caught with her things in his car, I just want people to think about this, right? Think from the mind of a criminal, right? If he was crazy enough to do all of that, how would he have so much sense as to clear a murder weapon of his DNA if the prosecutor's team and their investigators couldn't even do that? And that's what they're trained to do. They're trained to handle this evidence with care so that they don't infringe upon preserving whatever evidence is there. DNA evidence is there. Fingerprints that may be there. Right? His footprints do not match the ones found at the crime scene. You have nothing else tying him to being in this woman's house and committing the murder. There are several things that we might do as a melanated people that could have led to him being there. He could have been robbing her. It could have been a crime of opportunity. Who knows? There are a ton of things that it could have been. But what it is not is clear that this man murdered this woman. So at no point should there have been a conviction that led to him actually dying. Being convicted of murder is one thing because he did not cooperate. Let's go to my comparison story, okay? For example, all right? I know you guys watch plenty of reality TV because that's what we do. So there's a guy who goes by the name of Dog. And he's a famous bounty hunter. His name is Dwayne. So let's read an excerpt about him. Dwayne Dog, the bounty hunter Chapman, was sentenced to 5 years. Yep, you heard it. 5 years in prison for murder in 1977. Let's talk about the evidence they did have for him. Chapman was found guilty of murder for supplying shotgun cartridges to a friend who then shot a drug dealer during a cannabis deal. Chapman was found at the time, outside at the time, but the jury found him culpable because he bought his own weapon. So what we see here, right, that's clear evidence of, what do they call that? Accessory to a crime. And accessory after the fact. Conspiracy to commit murder. But you don't see that he didn't get he didn't get all those charges for one. Now, if that was a black person, okay, if that were a black person, all of those excessive charges would have been 100% found to be charged against that black man. I find it interesting that in the state of Texas, that was so interesting to me. Yeah, in the state of Texas, right? So he was sentenced to 5 years in prison, but served 18 months at the state penitentiary in Huntsville, Texas, before being paroled. He too changed his life, by the way, embraced religion. But his outcomes, of course, were a lot better, more favorable. Yep. Probably because he had the right skin color. So for the person that decided Wild Wild West to make the comment that nobody ever said that he hadn't committed the crime but him, that's what I want to lean to. Okay, that's what I want to lean to. I want to lean to the injustices that are inflicted amongst Black people, melanated people, just for the sake of them being Black, just for the sake of them, us, being the kinds of people that are an eyesore. We make you uncomfortable by having our beautiful bronzed skin, glowing in the sun, being able to tolerate its rays. These are the things that we're guilty of. And because we're guilty of that, we'll be guilty of every single other thing that you can stack on us in the moment that it deems to be convenient for you, that other person of another culture. That's the reality. So the reality is we do a lot of things, right? We do a lot of things. But the punishment that we are rendered as a result of having stepped out of line and deciding to disobey the law, it should be befitting the actual crime that can be proven against us. Okay? So let's say that this young man was found to be in possession of stolen items, because at that point, this woman is deceased. He's found in possession of stolen items if you don't have any evidence that ties him to the actual crime of her murder, right? So let's say he's found guilty of the proper crime. Then he's not spending a lifetime in prison that he could have been out living and then executed earlier today. Yeah. But he is punished accordingly. Perhaps he gets 18 months. And then he's on papers, on parole. To me, it's the unfair references for me. Okay? It's the unfair treatment. It's the unfair scrutiny that is given to our young Black men. Now, and I'm not saying that we don't need to check our community. I'm not saying that our young Black men are spot on, law-abiding, shiny citizens. What I'm saying is we are a flawed people and we must accept that. And as a result of us accepting that, we must then advocate for laws that make more sense in the preservation of, in the rehabilitation of our young Black men that are broken. Some of them are fatherless. Some of them are fatherless by choice and some by force. Okay? Some of them didn't have a choice. That's all that they gave them. The streets raised them. The mother wasn't there. The fathers weren't there. The parents of the mothers weren't there. Foster care has failed them. The legal system has failed them. They're constantly in a state of crisis. Their mental health is fragile. Their emotional health is non-existent. Like, these are things that we've got to start speaking to, but not only speaking to, but doing something about rehabilitating. We've got to get passionate about that. Right now, we are talking about being people who are essentially the majority now. Can you believe it? We really are. And we talk about crime stats. Let me read this to you guys. I found this to be so interesting, because this is what I find gets Black people. This is what I find really gets us. Many of us. Really does, because we start feeling like everybody for us, somebody out there for us, somebody care, right? If we pull up the crime statistics for the past 50 years, okay, by demographic, I want you guys to listen to this overview. More young people are victims of serious violent crimes, right? Okay. Young people, for example, half of the robbery victims are 26 years old or younger, and nearly half of all robberies are committed against people 21 or younger. Gender. Men are more likely to be arrested for certain crimes, including aggravated assault, offenses against children, fraud, and larceny or theft. That's what Marcellus should have went to jail for, by the way. Race. Listen, in racially motivated hate crimes, 52.5% of offenders were white, 23.9% were Black, and 14.6% were unknown. Let's look at this, because I was so shocked that they even got this section there. Perception of crime. Gonna gaslight the hell out of us. It's the internet. It's the internet. Perception of crime, right? It's not our reality. It's the perception. Americans tend to believe crime is increasing, even when official data shows that it's decreasing. What kind of crime are we talking about? Crime in general? Or we're talking about violent crimes here? You see how that play on word happened? You didn't see it. Other factors that may be affecting crime rates include crack cocaine. The rapid growth of crack cocaine market in the mid-'80s was linked to increased homicide and robbery rates. Legalized abortion. The reduction in children born to mothers in difficult circumstances may have contributed to a lower crime rate. You can't make this stuff up. It's out here. So basically what it's saying is, because we find ourselves to be povertized people, right? We're at the bottom. We can't make it up, right? Abortion is a way of us eradicating us. So then we solve our own problem with crime. I cannot. Now, I really want you to listen to this. According to data from the FBI's Uniform Crime Report, over the past 50 years, statistics consistently show that the rate of violent crime is significantly higher for Black Americans compared to white Americans, with Black individuals disproportionately represented in violent crime arrest data. How the hell are we disproportionately represented? Let me read to you guys the definition, okay? Read it from right here, right? That would mean that we're being represented in a way or an extent that is larger in comparison to something else, right? In order for it to be disproportionate, our stats would have to be what? Inaccurate? Because what are we comparing ourselves? The crime is what we're focusing on. So it's not a disproportionate representation. We're looking at the crime compared here versus the crime compared there. There is no disproportionate representation. It's just us looking at the demographic data of crime stats. And we understand the thing is, when you put things out there, we start feeling like, oh, well, people are just targeting us and they're listing things that really don't apply to us. But, here we are. Doesn't really apply to us because this is a disproportionate representation. but it isn't. And then they go and they further it with particularly for homicide cases. However, it's important to note that this disparity is complex and influenced by various socioeconomic factors beyond race alone. So it ain't that they're black. It's that they're poor. They're poor blacks. We're poor melanated people. Poor us. Poor us. Wait until we wake up. Wait until we wake up. Wait until we wake up. I'm just not so sure that we're going to wake up anytime soon, folks. Mm-mm. Factors like poverty, lack of educational opportunities, and concentrated disadvantage in certain neighborhoods can contribute to higher crime rates in communities with larger Black populations. And one of those reasons is that Black families are tired of being ridiculed by school systems, police officers, social workers, Department of Family Children Services, the people that are supposed to be supportive, the people that are supposed to be encouraging of them doing the job of parenting, for one, that don't really accurately find meaningful ways to support the whole family and the whole child, because they make these people, and don't give them the playbook, by the way, they make these people feel lesser than, or that they're doing wrong and trying to guide their children to even do right when they are. And I don't know. Law enforcement has a tendency to look down on, shun down on. Poor Sonia. What happened when she called law enforcement? These young men that are dying in crisis situations every single day in the various counties in Atlanta, in the various states around the country, in the various cities around the country, that these young people that are constantly experiencing mental health crises, that are calling the cops to come and help, to bring some help, and they can't get it. They can't get it because they look like you and they look like me. And that look ain't the look. I wonder sometimes if there are respectability politics amongst criminals in our community. I spoke on so many of the disparities that we put ourselves amidst, right? So many of the things that we find that our young Black people are constantly actually engaging in. Because I'm not saying that we do not commit these drive-by shootings or what they're now considered to be mass shootings, because they are. We commit murder every day, but the answer is not to take the life of the person that has murdered a person. It is to try to rehabilitate the parts of the person that present as disordered, misrepresented, misgiven to society. Are we beyond rehabilitation? Because I know that, for those of you that are from the old school, I know you guys remember, we come from a place where there were respectability politics amongst criminals. There were. No women and no children. Now our women and our children are being murdered in the streets like dogs at the hands of the fathers of the children. That's the reality. And that's a sad reality to sit with, but it's still a reality nonetheless. And it still doesn't justify our young Black men being taken away from us. It just doesn't. I'd like to know you guys' thoughts about that. Do you feel like respectability politics have left amidst the criminals? Like, people are sometimes going to obey the law, and you got some folks that are not, right? I just don't know if we understand the impact of what we do on the people that want to give us support accurately, that want to trust, but they're fearful. that want to see within us that there is something, a greater capacity, but they're doubtful. I don't know. These are the things that I constantly ponder on during those spaces of idle time. So, what do you guys think are some possible reformation suggestions for our community? What do you think needs to be done in order for us to, I don't know, maybe turn the page or flip to another side, do a 180 and reinstate ethics, morals, conviction in the hearts and the minds of our young Black people? I, for one, think that the number one suggestion is removing social media. I think that social media has too much influence, and the nuclear family has too little influence over the perceptions, the minds, the thoughts, the organization, the structure of the young Black man, the young Black woman, and their goals and aspirations for a future, if any. I just think that the negative things are what we're naturally drawn to, because we're not given enough conditioning towards the consideration of the positive things. Those are just my thoughts, though. I'm looking forward to hearing from you guys in the comments over the course of this week, because I want us to start collaborating. I want us to have this discussion. I want us to actually advocate for change, and I want to see something different pan out from all of this, because I just feel so heavily that we could do better. And I feel so heavily that it's weighing down on our young Black people, on all the people that are impacted by our community, because we are not just one. We don't stand alone. That's the reality. There are lots of nationalities around the world that stand with us, but the problem is we will not stand for ourselves. You cannot have other people represent and stand for you if you stand for nothing. And we've got to do better. We've just got to do better. That's the reality. My heart goes out to the family of Marcellus Williams and everyone that he touched the lives of, everybody that prayed for him, everybody that was impacted by his story, everybody that has sat with him, everybody that gave a heartfelt thought and consideration for him, even those who judged him, the families that are impacted and have to sit with and live with the decision to send an innocent man to his death for something that he clearly did not do. That's just a lot. It is. So I want to jump to our relationship talk discussion. Question is there someone for everyone? Why do we always want those who are not interested in us? I don't know. And I think that that's it's a good question. It comes from a viewer. And I'd like for other viewers to take a look and evaluate that. My comments are probably echoed on this channel time and time again. In short, I'll say I do believe that there is always someone for everybody, and sometimes it's multiple someones for somebody. However, I do feel like sometimes we outlive our someone. We outpace our someone, and as a result of either outliving or outpacing them, we're misaligned and we're not on the same time-space continuum. Love and alignment are not always one and the same at the same time. I think that we have to ask ourselves, how much do we listen to our heart and our mind collectively? How many times are we allowing ourselves to be properly interwoven, right? And how effective are we at doing the dance of love and consideration, right? So there is love where the emotions are a part of the dance, and then there is consideration where we allow ourselves to be led by the inner components of us that are more congruent, that are thoughtful, that are calculative in the way it moves. And as a result of that, whatever it is that we bring forth after collaboration of those two components, nothing can break the bond up. Nothing. So the question is, will you allow yourself space to be curious enough to lean in and find the one that wants you, the one that's for you, the one that you don't even have to do much to acquire alignment with? Are you looking for the person that you're aligned with, or are you lusting? That is the question that I have. So my final thoughts and reflections are as previously stated. I feel like we've got to do better. My heart, my thoughts, my reflections, my meditations, and my prayers are wholly with the family of Marcellus Williams. And I, for one, will continue to consider you. I, for one, will continue to consider not only you, but every single Black man that has been executed in these last couple of years for crimes that they were not proven beyond a shadow of a doubt to have been committed. For the injustices that have been brought upon and against our Black men, when we look in comparison to other men of different cultures. I don't forget. I won't forget. And I think you guys should not forget as well. Be reminded of that when you go to the polls. Don't vote with emotion. Vote with common sense. So that is all that I have, you guys. I appreciate you guys for sitting through and watching the show, contributing to the discussion. And I look forward to seeing what your thoughts and reflections are over the course of this next week. Until next time, you guys, it's been real. I love you guys. Later days. Bye.